Hello, everybody, and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Return to Ravnica here from Seattle, Washington. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. I am joined in the booth by Zach Gale. Hey, Zach.
Hey, what's going on?
And we are going to be seeing a feature match of Return to Ravnica Draft with Matt Costa versus Patrick Chapin. Hall of Famer now, Patrick Chapin. And we see a turn 2 Grim Roustabout from Costa.
Right. Two of the sort of common wisdom says strongest archetypes when you're looking at straight up guilds. We got Rakdos versus Celestia right now. Great start out of the Rakdos deck, but should be a pretty straightforward match between two traditional powerhouses in the format.
All right, we see a Deviant Glee come down on the Grim Roustabout right away, and he can play that pretty comfortably into the 2 planes because there's really nothing that can interfere with that at that cost.
Yeah, exactly. And at 4 power, it even dodges Celestia Charm, which is one of the few tricks that could have been active there.
Yeah, and he had white up at the time.
Right.
So
yeah, couldn't have even cast it.
Can't cast it. Yep.
Good turn.
All right.
So the Stonefair Crocodile comes down as a 3/2. He can, well, in this case, he doesn't have black mana available, but if he did, he could pay 3 mana to give it lifelink until end of turn. But Matt Costa is going to be able to just bash away with impunity here because the Grim Roustabout has regeneration.
Right. If Pat were to block, you could simply pay 2 mana to regenerate the Roustabout. It's basically the best creature, or one of the best commons to have that enchantment on.
Agreed.
And this could be a very quick match. There's really not a whole lot a green-white deck can do about that solves the problem permanently.
Yep. So we see a Splatter Thug for Matt Costa, and Patrick is now looking at, okay, so he's hit his 4th land drop, and he's got to make a decision here. He can't attack without a combat trick unless he wants to bluff, but the Splatter Thug does have first strike. Now, he can attack because the Splatter Thug can't block anyway.
17.
Right.
So the 3 damage is, quotes free, but if you wanted to hold this guy back, then he would need a combat trick in order to block profitably.
Well, exactly, yeah. 3/2, normally a blocker that can at least trade on the 3rd or 4th turn, but right now it can't really interact profitably with any of Costa's creatures.
Yeah, now we have a security blockade for Chapin. That's going to give him a 2/2 Knight with Vigilance. And it's also going to enable that land to tap and prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to Patrick.
Yeah, which normally is just kind of
rush.
a marginal upside, but really, really good in this situation when his creatures can't interact terribly well with Costa's right now.
That's right.
And we've got a 2/2 Knight. So if Patrick can get some Propagate cards going, he can get right back in this game, but he doesn't really have a whole lot of time to do that.
Right.
Populates. I was using the playtest name for the mechanic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, too. But right now, Matt Costa has he's got easy attacks here.
Combat.
Sure.
And he's going to go straight to combat.
No blocks.
And he's going to bash for 7.
Prevent 1.
And Patrick is going to take
6
7,
total.
but prevent
6.
1 of it, so he's only going to take 6 here.
A mere half of his life total.
Yes, just half.
And not really.
Is this a Cobble Brute?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a Cobble Brute. So Cobble Brute's a simple card. It's 3 and a red for a 5/2. That's it. It's got flavor text, but it doesn't have anything else. But what I found Cobble Brute great at is this, exactly in this plan. It backs up other attacks because, sure, the Knight might trade for the Cobble Brute, but what is he going to do? Take all of the rest?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and Cobble Brute actually, one of Eric Lauer, the lead developer of Return to Ravnica's favorite types of cards. They're just really strategic vanilla creatures with no other abilities.
Yeah, we saw this in M13 as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I also like me a good vanilla creature. But Cobble Brute just tough enough to be able to survive some attacks against some normally sized defenders, but still a pretty fragile card. But it's kind of exactly what Costa wants when he has so much pressure on the board.
This is a big play, and it's not a particularly impressive one. It's Concordia Pegasus followed by Sunspire Griffin for Patrick Chapin. Now, I noticed in Costa's hand he has at least 1 Traitor Assistant.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's also got an Annihilating Fire and another Deviant Glee. He has so many options here. He's got a...
There's got to be a way to end the game this turn.
Yeah, I feel like the same way. That he's just going to probably just steal the Sunspire Griffin, which is exactly what he does.
Sure.
Now, he's tapped out for this, so it does mean that the Grim Roustabout not only can't regenerate, it also can't get trampled.
Right. Which is very relevant when Patrick is as low on life as he is. Now, the other thing is with the Annihilating Fire in hand, barring some kind of life gain, he only has to deal 3 damage on this attack, and that looks like exactly what's going to happen.
So and this is exactly, I think Costa saw that, well, I'm going to get 3 in one way or another. Because remember, the Sunspire Griffin's a 4 power. thanks
These
to
are my blocks?
Trader Sensing. So.
Right, exactly.
Okay, damage.
Yeah.
Now, and also,
You
we
at
know
3?
that Patrick is
I'm at
completely
3.
tapped out, so he can't use his security
You can have your
blockade that
Griffin
turn.
back.
Now, he can after.
Right.
So if Patrick leaves that thing untapped, then Matt Costa's avenue to victory of just being the Annihilating Fire actually doesn't work.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
And with the Griffin back, obviously Costa lost a little bit of advantage to sneak that damage through.
A lot. I mean, he lost all of his dudes.
What Patrick
just Splatter Thug back.
Right. Well, what Patrick would really like to cast here is the 3/3 that gains 3 life. And
Yeah, Centaur Healer.
yeah, Centaur Healer. Yeah, that can actually
Centaur
stabilize
Healer
the
would be
game.
great. And he could leave the security blockade up as well, just in case another damage is coming through. Yeah.
I mean, he's still not in great shape right now. He desperately needs a blocker, and he just passes the turn right
think
now.
he's got
That's right.
lands
Oh,
out.
okay.
Yeah, I
that
think that's
doesn't
what's
throw
going
damage
on.
from creatures, right? Just you? Okay.
All right, so Matt Costa wants a
thank you.
clarification, and Patrick does. I think what the right thing to do in that situation is, here, you read it.
Combat.
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
going to tell you
Exactly.
what my cards
I'm not going
say,
to play
right?
your cards for you.
Yeah.
Block.
Right.
Sure.
So he's got a chump block, and Patrick also does not have a combat trick here. And I think we're going to see a Viashino Racketeer.
Is he just going to go for the win here? Or yeah, okay, just deploy some
Yeah,
more
he's going to
threats
play a
on the board.
3-drop. Yeah, it could have been a Racketeer or it could have been the Dead Revelers.
Cool.
He decided on the Revelers.
Right.
And he's going to pass turn back. He's still got Deviant Glee as well. That looks like
Coursers.
Coursers.
Okay.
That's
Course,
going to
of
make
course.
2
We have 2 centaurs.
Centaurs, as you can hear Patrick say there. We can hear the player's feed, and I'm assuming that is also live on the feed.
I hope so.
And he's getting, 2 3/3 Centaur tokens here.
Now, he's got 2 3/3 Centaurs, paid 6 mana. Normally, you're not too upset to do that against your opponent's 2 and 3 drops, but right now, still not very many profitable blocks
No.
for Chapin here.
A 3/4 and a 3/3 first strike is just, and that
Block.
should be the game. He's going
Prevent
to prevent
1/3.
1, go to 2, and then we're going to see Annihilating
Yeah.
Fire finish him
Or,
off.
or
Skull.
That's a Skull Rend, actually. He decides not to show him the Annihilating Fire. He's just going to do the last 2 damage with the Skull Rend. And that's a card that I'm not a big fan of. But
yeah.
I just don't think it's particularly efficient.
it's definitely not efficient.
Yeah.
When it shines, actually, I think it's very much in decks like Costa's,
Okay.
where you have a lot of early aggression. Your worst enemies are going to be the mid-range decks that can sort of stabilize right
Okay.
around turn 5.
Yeah.
I think being able to hit them with that card sort of gets the last 2 defensive cards out of your opponent's hand, and also gives you a little bit of extra reach. You know, it's only 2 damage,
Sure.
but it's still damage that goes directly to the face.
Absolutely.
In situations like that, if he didn't have the Annihilating Fire, a card still would have won him the game. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely agree. I don't think it's a card that you go out of your way to pick terribly early.
Right.
But I do think it's playable, actually, and the more aggressive your deck is, the more I like to play Skull Rend.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right, you can play Magic at a store near you every Friday. Earn Planeswalker points and battle against your friends in Friday Night Magic. October's F&M promo card is Evolving Wilds. Oh, I like that one. Visit wizards.com/FNM to find a store near you. All right, so let's talk about this matchup. So we've kind of detailed a little bit about what Matt Costa is trying to do. His deck is clearly very, very aggressive.
right.
How does Chapin's deck combat it? Does he race him, or does he try to hold him off?
You know, it's very challenging to race a black-red deck without some sort of direct way to gain life, because they're very likely to have more removal than you.
Yeah.
And Unleashes actually like just a very challenging mechanic to race, because like you tend to get more size for the same mana cost. Sometimes it's what you have to do, and being on the play, Chapin's going to have initiative this round, which is going to be huge.
Yeah.
But without range and without removal, it tends to be hard to win a racing situation. I think Patrick needs to try and take advantage of just any way to gain life and really get some creatures with some toughness on the board to try and stem the bleeding.
We're getting an update from the back tables. For those of you that like filibustering, apparently Pascal Maynard wins his match with 2 Azorius Elocutors, both getting their fights.
It was the...
And we're also told that he forgot the upkeep trigger once, and it would have won it even a turn
Oh, no.
sooner. But he was completely locked out. And we did see Kenji Samura. We got a chance, for those
Player
of you just joining to watch Kenji draft his deck, and he didn't take the Elocutors. It didn't seem to fit in his deck that well, but apparently Pascal's the one that ended up with it.
I feel like it's really in the spirit of the card to actually miss a trigger on your filibuster counters, further filibustering.
Yeah.
I kind of have to appreciate that.
I'll keep.
You see both players keeping their hands right now. Chapin just leading with the Plains. We see Plains to Mountain. Chapin has a turn 2 Griffin.
Yep.
Not really going to stem much bleeding or deal much
Pegasus.
damage, but at least it's a play.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry,
unfortunately,
Pegasus.
it's the Griffin would be nice.
Sure.
But, yeah.
This, what is it? The Storm
Yep.
It's
Tide
a
Pegasus?
Concordia
Pegasus.
Pegasus, yep. And we see a Tavern Swindler, which is, that's one of the
Okay.
that's one of the cards that actually can't
Bankrupt?
attack through the Pegasus.
Oh,
Oh,
we see a defensive giant growth.
that's interesting.
from
I don't know
Patrick's
if I would have traded it off for the Swindler, but he wants to use up his mana there. See, this is the kind of card I'd like to trade it off because Cost is going to have a ton of stuff that the Concordia Pegasus just simply doesn't block profitably.
That is true. On the other hand,
19.
defensive combat tricks are really sort of opening you up to a blowout a lot of the
Yeah.
time, and I think you kind of want to
Hey, there's your
capitalize
buddy.
on that. All right, this
23?
is exactly what Patrick
Centaur
wants right here.
Healer. Now, that being said, Patrick now I think he is going to try to race, right?
20.
Because he can't block still. It's a 3/4.
For sure.
Okay.
And I mean, a racing situation is a little bit more profitable now
Yep.
when you get your opponent's second turn creature off the table, and you have an evasive creature plus a life advantage. So
Yep.
a race is looking a little bit better here. I mean, he's still going to take 6 on the counter attack, but he's delivering 4 and has more
15.
creatures to put on the board.
And more life to
Yep,
do.
Okay.
precisely. Oh, and this is another card that can help you race quite well.
Yeah, this thing, I wonder if he just drew it because this card isn't one that you'd be particularly, you'd really like to keep that giant growth in your hand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think just end the game right away. But this card's playtest name was Inbigifier.
Inbigifier.
Inbigifier, and that
I
is
like
exactly
that.
what it
If I read
does.
the
This is
Right.
Wild Beastmaster.
Wild.
Yeah, so Wild Beastmaster is only a 1/1 for 3, which doesn't look too good on the surface, but whenever it attacks other creatures, each other creature you control gets +X until end of turn, where X is Wild Beastmaster's power.
Yep.
So even if it just attacks alone,
It's a-
even if it attacks unpumped, it's still +1/+1 to your other guys. But if you get a giant growth on it, it's insane. So Viashino Racketeer comes down, and we see Skullrend pitched to it to just draw something else.
Right, yeah.
So has Chapin missed a land drop here? I believe so.
He's missed a couple of land
Yeah,
drops,
so-
actually. The tourney giant growth, he didn't have his third land drop
Okay, so
either,
that's probably why he was like, well, I better use my mana while
right.
I can. Okay.
Well, yeah, and he doesn't want to fall too far behind while he doesn't have lands, and he knows that if he draws lands, he's going to have a grip full of threats.
Right.
So being able to trade 1 for 1 in that situation just tends to be advantageous.
Okay. So Patrick is deep in contemplation here. He's going to need to find a way to attack profitably and to race. Although he needs something good, a common bond here, putting both counters on the Wild Beastmaster would be sweet.
That would be unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think I see one in his hand. Is that not what that is right there?
It's really hard for me to tell. Last time I saw
Yeah.
most of these cards, they didn't have art.
Oh, right. You're still operating under that.
But
All
yeah,
right, he does have a common bond in hand, but we also see an ultimate price for Matt Costa. So right now, Matt can't play ultimate price. He can't cast it. But if Chapin wants to just move in, he can make his Wild Beastmaster a 3/3 right now and attack with everything, and it would be 3. And then his other creatures would get +3/+3, so it's 4, 6, so that's 10, 11, 12, 13 damage, which would bring Matt Costa down to 2. And Matt Costa's creatures obviously don't block very well. He's only got one guy that can block at all.
that's very true.
Yeah.
I think you have to go for it here. I think
Oh, yeah.
you're very much going to force your opponent to block with his 2-1 at the very least. So
Yeah.
you're not really losing card advantage. And like you said, Marshall, we're clearly in a racing situation. So I think sort of capitalizing on that is what you want to be doing.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
exactly what happens.
And he does. So he's going to put both counters on the Wild Beastmaster. And I think we're just going to see a ship.
Yep.
Here it goes.
Attack. All my guys get the Beastmaster trigger.
Now you hear Patrick being very deliberate. There's some new rules regarding triggers, and you have to announce them.
Right. You have to announce things that I guess don't visibly
Yeah.
impact the board state. I don't really know how it works.
Yeah. You just basically, if it's your trigger and you want it to happen, you have to indicate that it happens. And that's what he does
Makes
very
sense.
clearly. And it looks like Matt's going to
Take 7.
prevent 6 damage here
Good.
by chump blocking. Now, the race is definitely on. What we're going to see here is Ultimate Price is going to kill the Wild Beastmaster. Interesting though, the Wild Beastmaster triggers when it attacks.
Right. So you really want to cast it
Ready?
either on Patrick's upkeep or first main phase or on your turn. I think we're seeing it used
Ultimate price.
basically sorcery speed to get the Beastmaster out of there.
That's right, and he just doesn't
your
want to take any chances, so he uses his ultimate price, and the creature's dead because there's no difference.
Right. So
Patrick gets that information ahead of time anyway.
the life totals at 8 and 8. Costa's next attack would take Patrick down to 2, but he already discarded the Skull Rend that could deal the last 2 points of damage. I wonder if Patrick's thinking, okay,
No
well, that
blocks.
means he
Maybe
has
4?
another burn
Correct.
spell. It could mean that he just chose a card that wound up
Yep.
being bad at the time, but could be very good now.
Okay, so
Patrick-
he attacks for 4, no blocks, and we're going to see Matt Costa swing in, but Patrick Chapin has an Eyes in the Skies, and I'm assuming he's going to use this, as a defensive spell
Eyes in the Sky?
to block. So Eyes in the Skies.
Make 2 birds, block both.
He says,
Yeah.
make 2 birds. He goes immediately to blocks. Now, Costa could have backed him up if he wanted, but he said,
Right.
sure. So they're both getting chump blocked. And Costa needs to put up something that can get in the way of that Centaur healer.
Right, a pretty devastating Eyes in the Skies there. Kind of a cryptic command.
Yeah.
Gain a bunch of life. The
Definitely.
5/2 on defense now, threatening to trade with the Centaur healer.
Yep.
But,
Now there's a Cobble Brute that comes down, which, like you said, but I think that Chapin just drew an Armory Guard, and if he does, that's a 2/5 that is going to be able to block either the Splatter Thug or the Dead Reveler pretty well.
No, that's very true. And now we have a lot of interesting decisions for Patrick. It's not clear whether he wants to trade his healer for the Cobble Brute.
No.
He kind of wants to attack with a Pegasus. He has another Pegasus in his hand, which could end the game in 3 attacks if it gets on the board. But
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
lot of mana to work
Well,
with.
one of the things I think that Patrick is thinking about is how did the last game end?
Right.
Right. There was a traitorous instinct involved. So forcing the trade here is actually something that he might be interested in doing.
That's a good
both.
point, yeah, because having his 3/3 back isn't necessarily an
3.
asset if it gets
Yeah,
stolen
if
from
it just
him.
gets stolen. So he doesn't want to make that an out, as we say. Now, he's got Armory Guard. There we go. He's got another Pegasus in his hand. He's also got a Sunspire Griffin. So, and then he's got a 7-drop with the Risen Sanctuary. So, all right, so Matt Costa
you
ships
get
him in there,
And 5 damage.
and he says, do 5 to you. So he takes 3 damage, Patrick does. He goes to 5, and Explosive Impact finishes him off.
Good luck the rest
Really
of the day.
tight
you.
game
You too.
there.
You hear good sports.
I had the ultimate
from,
price the turn I played Racketeer.
Listen to him.
So if I draw land, I can cast it that turn as well. But I was wondering whether you think it's too big a risk to play the Racketeer.
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, basically
Like,
what?
if I have a different pump spell,
Yeah.
just the risk of dying?
Yeah.
I really do not know.
All right, we get a chance to listen to a little post-match chatter from these two.
Sure.
All right, my colors, my guild, my shirt. Proclaim your allegiance today by purchasing your guild t-shirt at mtgmerch.com. Like mine.
I was going to say, I think we basically everybody on the video coverage team is
Yeah.
sporting the
Yeah.
very slick guild
Yep,
t-shirts.
I even signed up online in my guild or whatever,
Oh,
so
yeah?
I'm an official
A registered Is It member?
card-carrying member of Is It. So, I think that match that we just saw, it kind of played out how I thought it would.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the last game we saw actually a really, really tight game. Patrick was threatening lethal on the next attack. The Rakdos deck, just it had, exactly like we talked about. I mean, it had the range, the direct damage, and the removal spells to kind of force just awkward attacks from the Celestia deck and to punch through those last few points of damage. And that's you're right, Marshall. That's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because Patrick certainly put up a fight, although stumbling on his mana hurt him pretty bad. But, there aren't that many answers floating around to that Wild Beastmaster with the 2 tokens on it.
Yep.
The Ultimate Price is 1, Annihilating Fire is 1 as
Right.
well. But, at the below 6 mana cost, sometimes he just does that and that's the game.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you're not too upset either way because your opponent still has to block. So it's not as though the removal spell is 2 for 1-ing you.
Okay. All right, looks like we're going to get a little more action for you here at one of the side tables. And Pascal Maynard is up a game. He's on the left side of your screen there.
Yeah, and I can't really make out what the cards on the table are, but
right,
looks
so-
like a pretty complicated board state.
Yeah, so we're seeing it now. So there's a Trestle Troll, an Ogre Jailbreaker, that is a Golgari Key Rune. There's a Dead Reveler, which I believe has a counter on it, and a Rubbleback Rhino. So that's a pretty beefy board state on that side. On the other side, it's Vassal Soul, that is an Izzet Staticaster, and an Esperia's Skyguard. So this is kind of a stall out, it looks like, at the moment. That is a Seller of Songbirds.
Yep.
Would you like to buy a songbird?
Not really in the market.
I brought some with me. I don't know a lot.
We're hearing that Kenji
Like
Samura
Ravnica
took
related.
his match 2-1.
Okay.
So continuing his tear. Okay, sorry. Now I'm getting countervailing information. So
Yeah.
Kenji merely is in a position where it's believable that he took a match 2-1.
Yeah, but him being here satisfies that.
All right. But yeah, this board state right here, this is why I was always a worse limited player than a constructed player, because I see tables that look like this and I just give up.
You just blank out.
Yeah, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, these can be a little intimidating.
You're
right
saying
now-
this is kind of how you like to build a Golgari deck.
Yeah,
right?
this is exactly what I want to be doing. I think Jailbreaker is a key card. I think Trestle Troll is fantastic in this deck. And, I really like where John's at here. I mean, he's in a position where he can just sit back. Now, he doesn't have a gate in his hand, though. He has Stab Wound and Double Launch Party. Like, he's just in a position where, basically Pascal's going to have to come up with something pretty sweet. Now, we can see how Pascal was able to win with filibuster counters on his Elocutors because, it is a weakness of the Golgari deck is that if your opponent's trying to do something else, you give them a lot of time to do it.
No, that's a really good point. You have Trestle Troll, which has reach, which stops the flyers, but if an Elocutors is just ticking up, there, you have to have a removal spell right away.
All right, so we're going to launch.
Mona.
Yeah, so we're going to launch the Ogre Jailbreaker, which, he doesn't have a gate, so I guess he figures he doesn't really need that blocker on the ground anyway, and he's going to launch it at Esperia's Skynet. I think we're going to see a Mizium skin here act as sort of a counterspell. He does. He just, hey, I guess he wanted to keep his mana up. I didn't see what else he had in his hand, but he's going to use Mizium skin, which is going to give it hexproof, and now it doesn't die.
That is actually a pretty devastating
That's a huge blowout.
Mizium skin.
Yeah, really. That's just like a straight up 2-for-1 right there.
Right, yeah, Mizium skin, not a card that you see, a lot of times you're not even very excited to play it, but when your opponent just throws a 4/4 and a 4-mana instant trying to get rid of one of your creatures and you counter it for a single mana, you can't be too upset about that exchange.
Yeah, now Pascal has a really reactive hand. He's got an explosive impact, so that's a card he can use to reach out and kill whatever. He's got Archon of the Triumvirate.
Okay.
That's sitting in his hand. He's got Dispel, and he has Essence Backlash. So, basically, he's got 2 counter spells, a burn spell, and a bomb.
So interesting that he didn't use Dispel. He used Mizium skin.
He did, which is really interesting because obviously maybe it's not obvious, but he's got 7 lands. And what he's trying to do is save up to get to 8 so that he can counter something so his Archon lives because he knows that that's his win condition. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because he's not under a lot of pressure right now.
No, what is this card?
So this is a Stab Wound on the Staticaster, which is, I don't think it's a great play. If Pascal doesn't want to take damage, he can just he can just ping his own Staticaster.
Well, Staticaster is an 0-3, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but now it's an 0-1.
It's an 0-1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and,
so
that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, and he just does. So it's a play that sometimes makes sense because it just gives you a clock without having to do anything on these stalled boards. But when he can just volunteer to just take out his own guy, a little bit less good.
Yeah, kind of awkward because you might play it on the Sky Knight, but then it's a 1-1, so he can just ping that and he still has the pinger.
Yeah.
So really, Pascal's deck creating a lot of awkward situations for John right
now. I don't think I really like the play though a whole lot. I mean, what you would assume, at least if I was in Pascal's seat, is that John is trying to get it to the point where he can play something that has 1 toughness, but that's just not the case. We've seen John's hand and he doesn't have that.
Right.
He's got a launch party and I believe a forest. So we did see a gate come into play tap for Pascal last turn, so he's going to be untapping and playing the Archon.
And Pascal has Essence Backlash and Dispel in this deck, an interestingly reactive deck.
Yeah, and Mizium skin, so definitely waiting for things to happen. Now, as it turns out, this matchup is probably just very, very good for him because as we've seen, there was already a launch party. and there's another party to be had. And
Right.
when you get to counter those, that's bad.
Yeah, and he's still at a very comfortable 11 life. Not too many good blocks of the Death Touch key rune, at least blocks that he wants to make, but he knows he can afford to take some damage right now, and that's exactly what he's doing.
There it is.
Yeah, here comes Papa.
Here is Archon of the Triumvirate. Now, if you happen to go to a Return to Ravnica pre-release and you picked Azorius for your guild, you will know exactly what this guy does. So he's a 4/5 with flying, and when he attacks, you can detain up to 2 target non-land permanents that your opponent controls. That's big game, man.
Right. What that basically means is you're just going to shut down your opponent's army.
Spell again?
Oh, and yeah.
And we hear John say, "You got another one?" And he says, "Yep,
Yes,
it's a dispel."
that is in fact, yeah. So the blue instance defining the game.
Absolutely.
Right here.
But again, one of the things I want to note here, Zach, is that these are good because John's deck isn't actively pushing forward. Imagine if these were being played against like Matt Costa. Matt Costa's like, sure, whatever, like take 6.
None of those do anything.
No.
Very nice.
I mean, if you're holding those in your hand, you're dead.
Well, yeah, and like he doesn't even need to use his removal spells, right? He's just he's coming out so early that the board doesn't even look like this a lot of the time.
Now, we will remember here that Maynard is up a game. And, he might have seen a ton of removal and just boarded into all of his answers for it. That's absolutely possible.
Well, and that's something that's happened just in limited formats generally, is that we at R&D tried to make sideboarding a lot more relevant in limited.
I like that a lot.
Trying to, have second or, 25, 26th cards that you can bring in certain matchups and really change the dynamic around quite a lot.
Good. All right, so I think we're going to be seeing an attack here, although there are 2 Rumbleback Rhinos on the table. And those are not going to get detained. Yeah. So Pascal looks like he's setting up a 2-turn hit, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so he's got him dead in 2 turns just with these 3 flyers. And he is going to detain. He only detained the Trestle Troll. He could have also detained the Golgari Key Rune.
Could he? Because it's non-land permanent.
Yeah, it is.
He probably just, maybe he just doesn't realize
he
that.
thinks it's creatures. Because
sure.
like Azorius Arrestor is a creature.
Right.
Azorius Justiciar, just a creature.
Unless he's trying to bait an attack for some reason.
That's also possible. That seems pretty unlikely here. Because his guys are all flying, so why would he want to take any extra damage?
For sure.
I mean, Pascal is. Oh, that's a Drag Mangler off the top. Activate attack. Back up.
Oh, okay.
All right, so he's gonna. Wow, he waited a long time on that, but I guess it happened. So he Essence backlashes the Drag Mangler.
Dealing 3 more damage to John.
And he sends the hand, because even if he could flash it back, it wouldn't have been enough damage to actually kill him. So Pascal comes away with the win here. I am curious to see what he has in his main deck versus his side.
Yes, I got a 7th pick Guild Mage.
Yeah, I would really.
Because back one, I was like, I have no idea what he's going to play. Like, I see nothing. I picked the good cards in the packs, and like I ship him like the fine green cards, but like rhinos and stuff. I bet you got the rhinos pack 1. And
yeah, I got 1 Rhino pack 1. I got
the players talking about their draft.
I got a Kieran. What I was actually got a stab. I got pack pick 1. I took stab wound.
That's a good one.
I got Guild Mage.
What did you take out of my pack from pack 1?
He's talking about the Karazda Guild
I took August
Right.
3. And then never saw anything from Rakdos. So like the guy to my right is probably Rakdos.
Oh, it was.
So now they're chatting about, this is one of the interesting things that happens in
I
a draft.
took this guy.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You can get a feel for what the other players are doing.
So I took that guy. I ended up with 3 stab wounds.
And trying to figure out how the rest of the draft looks, based on what your
parties, 2
opponent
Guild
experienced.
Mage, 2 Jailbreaker. I have 2 Guild Gates and a Gatevine.
Okay, so we probably won't have any problem going 2-1 in this draft.
Yeah, my deck's very good, but like you're like the dispels are just like.
Yeah.
I didn't really see a lot of.
These dispels were pretty bad.
Yeah, the dispels and the variants up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they described it exactly right.
Stop.
All right, now who do we have here? We have Alexander Hain and Suching Guo. Now, these guys tested together quite a bit. And, I talked to Alex, and he not only told me that they did quite a bit of testing for Modern, but they drafted a lot. They were here a week early, and they rented a house or a condo or whatever together as a team. And, and so these guys definitely know what each other are trying to do in this format, even though they're teammates.
Yeah, and I mean, really forming a powerhouse team.
They really
is what
are.
I
And I
think.
think Pascal might have been with them as well. I'm not
Really?
100% on that one, but
Some quality magic being
I know he has tested with Hayne in the past,
For
at least
sure.
for some things, yeah.
He is Canadian. So.
Indeed. All right, so let's take a look at the board state here. It looks like we have a Rakdos versus Golgari matchup here. I see a stab wound on a Centaur. Are those two more Rubbleback Rhinos?
We're just seeing rubbleback rhinos all over the place.
Man,
3-4
those guys,
hexproof.
we're seeing a
is
ton of them.
apparently what the doctor ordered
Now,
today.
over on Alexander Haynes' side, we have a Gutter Snipe. I know how much you like that card, Zach. There's a Splatter Thug. There is also a Rakdos Rage Mutt and a card I'm not a big fan of, the Rakdos Shred Freak.
See, I'm actually a big fan of the Rakdos Shred Freak.
Why do you like that card?
I like having my 2-drops. I like getting ahead on the damage race in a deck like Rakdos, forcing your opponent into awkward blocks. And so I think it's so important to come out of the gates quickly. And I also think it's great to be able to like change the math in your favor, even as late as like turn 6.
Where they
your
don't see that
opponents-
coming.
Exactly. They're calculating a certain rate of damage. Being able to change that up without them being able to adapt to it, I find to be just pretty valuable. Plus, it's super easy to cast. It reduces variance. I just kind of like the card. But I also like Coral Merfolk. So
Yeah,
that
I think I
puts it
like
into
Coral
context.
Merfolk more than this one.
Really?
Yeah, this guy just dies. Like I get in for 2 and then he's dead. All right, we have blocks incoming here from the Pro Tour Adversary Restored champion, Alexander Hayne.
That's a bold block right there. Your opponent has 6 mana up. His own creature is hexproof, so it's not like you're bluffing a removal spell, and you're tapped out. I guess he thinks the 2-1's just not going to accomplish very much now, so might as well try and go for the trade and see what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, if this trade happens, it's going to be he's going to trade the Rage Mutt for the Rhino,
Right, which is totally fine.
And gain some life.
Like a giant growth here is just the biggest savaging.
Oh, it's savage. And speaking of savage, there's also Savage Surge, which he could have. And it looks like it's giant growth.
Yeah.
So he Alexander, he must have had the read that he didn't have it, and he missed on that one, and he gets 2 for 1 pretty hard here.
I mean, it's also possible that he was just trying to make Suching tap out or tap his mana, because I mean, Suching is on 8 and Hayne has a Gutter Snipe plus relevant attacker, so it's possible he was saying, all right, I just don't care about these creatures all that much.
Oh wow, I think this actually is the game. I see he doesn't have blue.
Oh,
He has a
okay.
teleportal in hand. If he was able to overload a teleportal, that's 2 damage from Gutter Snipe, plus 3 damage from Gutter Snipe swinging, plus 4 damage from the Thug, and that's the game.
And then stab wound too. That's the other thing is his ground creatures couldn't attack in any meaningful way because it would get rid of the stab wound.
Okay,
so he's probably just playing defense.
And I love this splash. Now, I've had more success in this format myself without splashing.
Oh, yeah?
But I got to say, if you're in Rakdos and you can splash for a teleportal, you're a very happy guy.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because like your opponent, your deck's probably faster than your opponents, and the second they try to stabilize, you're just like, no, my guys are unblockable. By the way, they all have +1/+1 counters. Please take 8 damage.
Yeah, and I think when I first saw that card, I thought, oh, there's probably a strategy with some tokens or just a bunch of creatures, but you need like 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that much. Like a Cobble Brute and anything else, and it's like lethal.
No, yeah, exactly. With Cobble Brute specifically, it's incredibly powerful.
All right, so Suching, he's got the double Rubbleback Rhino plus the Golgari Long Legs, and then the injured 1/1 now Centaur. He can attack with it.
Yeah, certainly if he wants to.
He's kind of got a mono dirtle control here. Like I mean, look at what he's doing. Like he's just got 3/4s and 5/4s, and they're not super tricky, but they're huge.
Yeah, they are giant, and if they have hexproof, it's kind of what you want against the black-red deck. Again, it's hard to tell how much of this is in the main deck versus out of the sideboard.
Because this match is currently tied at 1-1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and these are 2 champions. I mean, these guys have had a lot of success recently. I mentioned Alexander Hayne was a winner in Barcelona, and Suching, his team won the World Magic Cup.
Oh yeah, and in addition to him being a platinum level pro,
he is a platinum level pro as well, and he was the leader of that team both by the numbers and spiritually, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, it was just so
he's battling.
6. Yeah.
Hayne, you see him confirming life totals there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Haynes. So it's 5, 8, it's 11. I mean, even a giant growth doesn't kill him here.
Yeah.
Like, he might just take it. I mean, I think that Hayne, I'm curious to see, because usually when you see a teleportal splash in Rakdos, it's because they have an is it guild
No
gate.
blocks.
Sure.
And that is not going to get him there.
Right,
He needs an
yeah.
island or damage.
You're 4.
For
He
sure.
says no blocks. He's going to go to 4.
All right.
Do you wonder why Tsuchi's not swinging?
No, I think he wants to keep it back to block. I mean, like,
Okay.
the 1 damage means that all of a sudden the counterattack isn't gain. In essence, Quo gains 2 life by keeping it back, or however many life that Hane's attacking for.
Exactly.
I didn't explain that well. But you see what
I
I'm
see what you're saying. I just see what you're saying. All right. So he says he plays Treasure Find on a Dagger Drone Imp and replays it all in the same turn, along with the Drudge Beetle. So did Hane hit the mana he needed? He did not.
Good card.
He hit another
Win
mountain.
or you win or I win. I think.
And
This turn.
we heard
Yeah.
Teaching say either you're winning or I'm winning, depending on what you got here. He doesn't need much. Tsuchinquo's going to go to,
I will all attack for next turn.
and you hear him just tell him,
Yeah, I'm going to
He's
attack.
like,
I promise.
we're attacking with everything
Yeah,
next
you
turn,
win.
buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
And he says Alexander Hane extends the hand and shows him the teleportal.
Control my creature attack.
Yeah.
Like this. Oh,
Wow.
Wow, Tsuchinquo. And now remember,
Close.
these guys are test partners.
Yeah.
So he took a little liberty there to check the
Okay.
next card, and it was Mizium Orders,
Wow.
which would have been devastating.
Yep.
Mizium Orders doesn't target
Come
when
on,
you
the deck is so
overlord.
strong.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, man, like, you've got 2 Rubbleback Rhinos, and you're like, all right, well, no matter what, I can just block if I need to, right? These guys aren't going anywhere. But absolutely, Mizium Orders and
Right.
the overload mechanic, kind of changed that dynamic in a pretty big way.
But they didn't, because he didn't draw it. So
yeah, and he was
wins.
one draw step away
Yep.
from being able to draw it. Sometimes it gets that close. If it was an island, also the game's over.
Yep.
Also, I mean, I don't know if Hane has explosive impact in
A
his,
lot of
in his deck.
hexproof creature.
Yeah, I mean,
Hard to
basically
make.
any removal spell, too, would let him push through
Yeah.
more or less a substantial amount of damage, or just survive long enough for the stamina to kill him. So a lot of outs that Hane could draw there, but he did not do so.
And Tsuchinquo gives him the little mini rub-ins at the end there. This kind of, you would have had it. Look at that.
Right. Yeah,
Welcome
of
back to
course.
the booth. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. This is Zach Hill. We're talking Return to Ravnica draft here today, and we both couldn't be happier about it. Let's just be honest.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah, and I think we got a chance so far to see a pretty good, kind of a swath of some of the decks that you tend to see. I would be curious to see, like, a deck like Pascal's go up against a deck like Matt Costa's.
Yeah,
What
for
do you
sure.
like in that kind of a matchup? A more reactive deck versus a much more proactive deck.
It's really hard to say. I mean, it just depends on what your reactive cards are. In general, in this format, I tend to like fast decks, and I like to be able to curve out, because some percentage of people are going to get a little greedy with their mana bases.
Yeah.
So aggressive Rakdos is actually one of my favorite things to draft in this set.
Yeah, I really like it a lot too. Okay, I am told that the news desk is ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to send it back over there. Oh, not quite ready yet. so why don't
Good
we keep
try.
talking about Return to Ravnica Limited, because I think
For sure.
that you and I could probably just sit here and do that for 18 hours.
I mean, yeah, like,
plus
we
or
don't
minus.
really need a Pro Tour to do that. But
It's a Zach and Marshall show.
Yay. Something that I'm really excited to see is decks that are sort of operating outside the traditional guild structure.
Yes.
Not necessarily just off color, but I mean, I do think like Axebane Guardian enables a lot of the sort of go big decks. There's Golgari Splash Blue, which is definitely a thing. So
Yep.
I'm really excited to just see what the players bring to the table as we watch more and more of these matches.
All right, so now I am told and reassured
For real this time.
that we can send it back to the news desk. So why don't we do that now?
Awesome.
We'll go back there. It's going to be back on you and I, and we're going to do another round of coverage after this, though. But for now, the news desk.